You to sing along.
As you leave this place, know that you belong. Know that you are not alone. Know that you are loved. As you leave this space, know that you belong. Know that you are not alone. Know that you are loved.
Thank you, friends. Okay, so my job is to set up Tim and our choir to share the depth and meaning of this holiday. You've heard a little bit of the historical information, but from the source, for those of us who grew up in Texas, we might have similar experiences. We grew up with Juneteenth, June 19th, the celebration of when the news came to Galveston, the port city in Texas, one of the biggest slave ports in the world. And we grew up with this story of how General Gordon Granger got off the boat, rolled in on his horse somehow, and gave Special Orders Number 3 that shared the news of emancipation. And the stories that we grew up with were that immediately some people fell to their knees and started thanking God. Some people started fighting with the people who had been their masters. And some people literally dropped what they were holding when they heard the news and started heading east and north to go find family members that they had been separated from. That immediately, when the news of freedom came, it had a different effect on people. That freedom is a process. Freedom is not just one thing you do. It's not just the orders that you give on this day in 1865. That it's a continuation. And that freedom delayed is not necessarily freedom denied, although that is being challenged now. And that is the paradox of Juneteenth in this time. When we sing a song about how freedom is coming, that's a song that has roots way, way back. And it is still true that it is still coming, and it does still have different effects and different meanings to people, and is still under threat. The problems were not solved by General Gordon Granger there in 1865 on the shores of Galveston, Texas. And the stories that we grew up with were about this paradox, that it was a celebration. The barbecues and the cookouts of Juneteenth, the parade that we had down Broadway in Lubbock, Texas, that all of my basketball teammates got to go to, and I got to stand on the sideline, which was fine. As the token white guy, I knew that it was both a holiday that was for me to celebrate, and it was not necessarily my holiday, right? I had a similar experience in going to the National Museum of African American History in D.C. I was living in D.C. when it first opened. We got tickets a few months after it opened, and I remember going and being so just in awe and so overwhelmed. I thought, this is amazing. And my experience could not hold a candle to the looks on the faces of the people going down the escalator who were African American. Say, this is our museum. Professor Eddie Glaude, who we've quoted from, talks about Juneteenth being an American holiday now, especially that it's a federally recognized holiday. And like freedom, that has had different effects on people. Some folks are really excited about it, and some folks, especially some African Americans, are like, okay, it was kind of our thing, and now other people are showing up to the party, and that makes it a little bit less special. So we hold that complexity. That is part of the paradox of freedom, and it's part of the paradox of Juneteenth, right? There's no one way to do this, and you're allowed to have your own experience. The point is getting together to share in the depth and the complexity, and recognize that it's not just supposed to be joyful, although it often is, that there is real pain to freedom as well, and that the story of freedom still coming means a lot more today even than it did a few years ago, right? So we hold that paradox together. I'm going to invite our choir forward to help us live into this joy and celebration and wrestle with these questions today about what it means to sing about freedom, and then we'll hear from Tim.
is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. My spirit knows. 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 Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know.
Beloved, good morning. It's good to be here with you the day after the amazing No Kings demonstration. And Bruce and Linda, I'm glad you made it back in time to be with everyone. And on this Juneteenth remembrance. And yes, there is a connection to the two that I will try to make without being too academic here. As we gather today, I declare humanity is beautiful and our children, the children of immigrants, and the children of Gaza are beautiful. But Juneteenth cannot merely be a celebration. It needs to be a form of consecration. When we remember, right, we'll understand why we can't relax and why we can't retreat. Seeking solace and understanding in challenging times, I turn to the insights of poets and truth seekers. This morning, my thoughts are guided by the wisdom of several influential figures, Reverend William Barber of Repairers of the Breach and the Poor People's Campaign, Professor Eddie Glaude of Princeton University, author and journalist Ta-Nehisi Coates, and the late writer and civil rights activist James Brown. So I'm going to try to bring them all together to give us some inspiration and wisdom in these times. I believe before we could talk about Juneteenth, we must first speak the truth about American chattel slavery. American chattel slavery was unique in dehumanization of enslaved people who were treated as property for over 240 years, violently taken from Africa and sold like livestock. This system was perpetuated, automatically enslaving future generations. It was deeply embedded in the economy, with enslaved people insured and used as collateral. Major financial institutions benefited directly from this practice. Slavery was maintained through brutal violence, including lynching, whipping, and rape. Reverend Barber identified slavery's cynical underpinnings as evil economics where profit justified any means, sick sociology, promoting a rigid social hierarchy, bad biology, falsely linking intelligence to skin color, political pathology evident in constitutions designed to avoid challenging slavery, and heretical ontology, the blasphemous assertion that God endorsed racism and slavery. The Civil War, which saw 620,000 to 750,000 soldiers die, more than all of American wars combined until Vietnam, was fought over this issue of slavery. Now let's talk about the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued by Lincoln in 1863, had cynical underpinnings. It only freed slaves in states in rebellion. If a state ceased rebellion, it could retain its slaves, as Delaware did. Texas and other rebellion states only received a message when sufficient Union Army presence could enforce it, with 250,000 enslaved people in Texas finally learning of the proclamation on June 19, 1865. Importantly, Juneteenth did not mark the end of slavery in America, which only became illegal on December 6, 1865. With the ratification of the 13th Amendment. Those ancestors, my ancestors, who received the message were not happy but angry at having been deceived for 2 years, understanding that freedom was just a step towards their true aspirations, dignity, full citizenship, and equality. That brings us to the cynical hypocrisy, as Barbara calls it, that can plague America today, even regarding Juneteenth and how it extends to contemporary issues like deportation policies and the rise of fascism. Reverend William Barber's powerful critique of cynical hypocrisy directly illuminates these connections. The unanimous Senate vote for a Juneteenth holiday is a cynical hypocrisy when paired with the refusal to pass the For the People's Act to stop voter suppression, especially given that Black individuals are disproportionately affected by long wait times at polls. It is hypocritical to celebrate the holiday while failing to restore the Voting Rights Act. Supporting Juneteenth rings hollow while 140 million people live in poverty and there is resistance to living wages and unions. Claiming to support Juneteenth is cynical hypocrisy without passing police reform. Furthermore, supporting the holiday while opposing universal single-payer health care, particularly with millions uninsured and Black workers experiencing greater job losses during the pandemic, is inconsistent. This reveals a broader hypocrisy where the symbolic recognition of Juneteenth is decoupled from addressing the systemic inequities that persist. This hypocrisy, as Reverend Barber warns, extends to how government might water down Juneteenth, erasing the truth of slavery if it's merely a party or a day off rather than a day on. Now let's connect the cynical hypocrisy to the Trump administration's deportation policies and the rising tide of fascism. The Emancipation Proclamation, while freeing enslaved people, left Black Americans in a precarious position, denied full rights, and viewed as other. This historical othering mirrors Trump's deportation policies that categorize residents as legal or illegal. a core tenet of fascism that defines national identity through exclusion. The Emancipation Proclamation asserted federal powers over individuals similar to Trump's immigration policies involving surveillance and removal. Fascist regimes also maintain total control over their populations economically. Post-emancipated exploitation like sharecropping parallels the precarious situation of undocumented immigrants facing exploitation. Fascist regimes similarly control labor for state benefit. The erosion of rights after emancipation and during Jim Crow highlights the fragility of legal pronouncements mirroring concerns about the rule of law under Trump's immigration policies. Fascism fundamentally undermines the rule of law with the arbitrary will of the state. As Ta-Nehisi Coates explains, the vectors of Trumpism include obsession with the position of Black Americans and DEI, as well as immigration. Often framed through a race-based view of hierarchical immigration, Coates further highlights that the corporate retreat from diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives is a display of ranked cowardice, stemming from a refusal to fight for democratic ideals when faced with political pressure from figures like Trump, who explicitly declared war on DE&I. This is not just about programs, but about the elevation of mediocrity and a refusal to fight for the stated ideals of democracy. The rhetoric employed by those who oppose DE&I and advocate for restrictive immigration policies often invokes a cynical narrative of victimhood. Coates highlights that the idea of white people being victimized by other groups, particularly Black people, is not a particularly modern invention. This tactic has historical roots. Slaveholders claiming they would be killed if their slaves were freed, or white supremacists arguing that they were victims of reverse racism. This rhetorical strategy serves to maintain white supremacy by shifting blame and justifying the policies that uphold a hierarchical structure. Understanding the complex legacy of emancipation, a promise of freedom often undermined by systemic racism, provides critical insight into how similar mechanisms of exclusion and control operate today. As Professor Eddie Glaude Jr. notes, America has this amazing ability to not look at itself honestly. We've doubled down on our ugliness at every moment when we are at the cusp of fundamental change. The historical patterns of reckoning followed by counter-revolution as seen after Reconstruction and the Civil Rights Movement reveals that America has consistently doubled down on our ugliness when fundamental change is possible. This Juneteenth, let it be a reminder of James Baldwin's profound truth. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. We must face our history, the truth of cynical hypocrisy, and the ongoing struggles for justice. So what must Juneteenth be for us? Juneteenth calls upon all morally aware Americans to remember the past, and this remembrance should drive an unwavering commitment to justice. Although physical slavery has ended, the nation is still bound by falsehoods, malice, homophobia, racism, xenophobia, and prejudice against those who are different. Reverend Barber rightly states that freedom is incomplete without equality, emphasizing that true freedom is a collective. Ta-Nehisi Coates further asserts that genuine Black liberation cannot coexist with the degradation and oppression of others. Juneteenth must transcend mere celebration or a holiday. It must be a day of active engagement where the unvarnished truth of slavery is acknowledged, not diluted or erased by other narratives. Instead, it should serve as a spiritual renewal, invigorating, restoring, and strengthening our resolve for the ongoing struggle for justice. So remember, never relax, never retreat, because if they didn't give up back then, we can't give up now. We draw a line in the sand. We continue to rise up. Thank you. Now we have special music.
Yeah, we're going to do our offering now. We'd hoped to have Leslie Farron-Smith sing Rise Up, but she's got a migraine today. So we're thinking about you, Leslie, and we'll get to that when she's feeling better, because I would love to hear that song. So we're going to do our offering now. We're going to pass the plate here in the sanctuary. Friends who are online, there's going to be instructions on how to give online as well. Holy Day is where we get the word holiday from. And a holy day is a time not just to celebrate, but also to think and reflect. So thank you, Tim, for that challenge, for the history, and for the framing for us. One of the ways that we can be a part of a solution here is to give to our offering. If you are new here,